This video is going to go over the general mechanics for Astromancer Elena. If you're looking for the team comp, that'll be out tomorrow hopefully, and if you're watching this during a future rotation, hopefully I don't get busy again and it'll be out a lot sooner. Based off the Euphenia rotation, I'd expect her to stay here for at least a couple more rotations, so this video so I don't have to go over her skills every single time. First, let's take a look at her Sect Leader's Might passive. This gives her a 100% hit chance and also a guaranteed crit whenever she attacks, and it also gives her Astral Curse, which prevents you from using counterattacks, dual attacks, or extra attacks. These are all good things in my opinion because it makes your runs much more consistent. Pretty much the worst thing for me during the Euphenia rotations was getting dual attacks at really bad timings, and we had so much extra attack RNG to play around as well with Dust Devil procs and everything. So getting rid of these is really nice. Guaranteed hit and guaranteed crit just makes it so that her damage output is super consistent. You're going to always know exactly how much damage you have to be able to tank up, so it's going to be a bit easier to tune around that. She also gets 10%, oh, she also removes all CR push effects, so you can't use any CR pushes. And then for herself, she'll gain 10% CR whenever you take a turn. Unless she's in break phase, then she won't get any push. She also has any lifesteal or bloodstone healing, because they're both damage dealt based. And as with pretty much any boss, at the end of her turn, she'll get stacking attack and speed. And then for her other passive, Astral Energy, the most important thing here is Weakened Divinity. She gets this whenever you kill all of the adds that she summons. And then here, if you hit her with defense buff 4 times, you'll be able to dispel this effect, which will also greatly increase her exhaustion bar. She has decreased speed and half CR push, so 5% during each of your turns during this phase. But she's still pretty fast, and you don't have that many turns to work with, so just get your defense buff up and hit her to dispel this effect. She also gets her skill cooldowns back whenever you give her Weakened Divinity, so if you fail to dispel it, you will lose your chance to increase her exhaustion bar, and she'll just use her S3 again. This final retaliation thing is just the Berserk counter. Once she hits 0, she's just going to kill you. And then there's her S3. Her S3 is an AoE that ignores F-res, strips all your buffs, inflicts unhealable, and also deals extra damage equal to 50% of your injury. The important thing here is the 2 adds that she summons, because this interacts with Weakened, or giving her Weakened Divinity, which is what the whole fight revolves around pretty much. So the adds that she summons get the Fanatic unique effect, which makes them pretty much immune to negative effects, and also gives them 80% damage reduction against single target attacks. So when you're hitting them, you're going to want to use AoEs to kill them pretty much. And then there's this thing here, where when she summons these adds, she doesn't heal them, and she's capped at 2. So if she's about to S3 again, you could opt to not kill them first, let her S3, and then kill them. Because if you leave them low HP, they won't get healed. There's also this redemption effect, which makes it so you can't get any buffs, and it will be dispelled when all adds are defeated. So basically, once you give her Weakened Divinity, this redemption effect will also go away. And more importantly, it also resets your skill cooldowns. So this means that you don't need to worry about using skills during the phase where you're still trying to kill the adds or anything. Going into break phase, or going into the Weakened Divinity phase, which will typically lead into break phase, you'll get all your skills back, so no need to worry about that. Her S3 also gives her 50% CR push, and that'll let her use her S2 on the next turn, which is just that she gives all allies 1 skill nullifier, and CR pushes a random ally by 30%. With the cooldowns that she has on her S3 and S2, she'll only ever S2 after using S3, so you don't need to worry about her randomly getting skill null. And then her S1's a basic AoE that inflicts injury, up to 3% HP every time she uses it. There's also Death Pen, which just makes her do more damage. The injury here interacts with her S3, the extra damage based on injury, because you'll be getting injured from her S1. Now let's take a look at the adds she summons. Like I mentioned earlier, due to the Fanatic unique effect, they'll have 80% damage reduction against single target attacks, and also immunity against negative effects. They also have this passive, which prevents them from taking more than 30% of their HP in a single hit. It also makes it so that they have a 100% hit chance and always crit. This part here is the same as Elena, it just makes her damage really consistent, so it's pretty nice. And this thing here means that you need at least 4 attacks to kill them. Your AoE attacks will probably hit the damage cap pretty easily, and then even with the single target 80% damage reduction, you're going to want to try to do at least 10% of their HP over multiple single target attacks, so you can kill them in just 3 AoEs. And then there's the S1. The S1 always hits the front enemy, and then it'll dual attack with Elena. So this is why her damage ramps up pretty fast, and you also end up stacking a bunch of injury, because you're just going to be tanking Elena S1s, and she's going to be spam injuring you. Since this always hits the front unit first, you do want your tankiest unit in the front, because they'll be taking the most damage. Now let's take a look at the exhaustion bar. Just like with Yufine, hitting the boss will increase the exhaustion gauge by 5%, not working on extra dual or counter attacks. And this means that after 20 hits, the bar will be full. With Yufine, we always ignored the secondary mechanic and we just had to get those 20 hits in as well as we could. That's not possible anymore because with Elena, we only have 16 turns to work with instead of 20 for Yufine. And also Elena just feels faster. So we're going to have to actually play around the secondary effect. The secondary effect here is whenever you dispel Weakened Divinity from Elena's passive, you'll increase the exhaustion gauge by 60%. So dispelling Weakened Divinity is 60% exhaustion, which is 12 hits worth pretty much. And we're forced to play around it this time. But it also completely changes how we approach the fight, because you have to hit Elena 4 times to dispel Weakened Divinity, and then dispelling it gives you 12 hits, so that's already 16 out of 20 hits. This means that you only need to hit Elena 4 times while killing the ads. Just killing the ads, you're going to hit Elena at least 3 times from the AoEs, and then the skill null that Elena gets from S2 actually doesn't prevent her exhaustion from increasing, so when you break that skill null with an AoE, that's also going to increase her exhaustion. So just by playing out the phase and not hitting Elena a single time with a single target attack, you're going to max out her exhaustion bar once you clear Weakened Divinity. Compared to the Yufine rotation where we're trying to use non-attack skills as little as possible, this also means that we can use non-attack skills freely here without really losing anything as long as we phase her in time. This is mainly relevant for Acades because during the Yufine runs with Acades, we would S3 and then spam S1 to push the exhaustion bar forward and try to heal up with Gaither S2. Here we can just Acades S2, S3, and it's no problem. And then there's also the advantages. So the advantages, during Yufine's rotation, only this bottom restriction here changed, while the upper one stayed the same the whole time. I wouldn't be too surprised if this was the case again, because they made this whole Mastery of Thievery unique effect, which surely they'll use for more than just 2 weeks. But do keep in mind that there's a chance they'll change it up. So Mastery of Thievery grants the thief unit in the back slot an extra turn when a different ally without the effect uses a non-attack skill, and it also gives the thief unit a greater attack buff at the start of their turn. This makes units with non-attack skills super valuable because they can give your main damage dealer more hits during the break phase. It's like everybody is a super jacked up A-lots now. The bottom restriction for team building during Yufine's rotations were 2 light heroes, no overlapping elements, and no overlapping classes. So you should expect to see future rotations have something related to class or element restrictions. And the bonuses for the stats here, 50% attack, and then during the Yufine rotations it was speed, and here it's damage reduction. I wouldn't expect to see these change. It's mainly just the restriction on what elements they want you to bring or what classes they want or don't want you to bring. So to summarize, when Elena uses her S3 and she summons the ads, use AoE attacks to kill those ads. Any other single target attacks you want to use or have to use can just be thrown to the ads as well, because you don't really need to touch Elena to max out her exhaustion bar. Once the ads are dead, put up your defense buff and hit Elena a bunch to push her into exhaustion phase. And then during exhaustion phase, use non-attacks so that your thief hero in the back can take a bunch of turns and do a bunch of damage. It seems like they tried to, one, reduce a lot of RNG, which I'm very glad they did. And also, it seems like they tried to maybe limit the amount of cheese going on. We'll see if anybody figures out something really wacky like Ice add-in for the Yufine rotations, where it kind of just turned to complete hell at the very end. But hope this video manages to help anybody who was confused about her skills, because there's kind of a lot in here.